Alright guys, welcome back. How you doing? So Jai Opetaia looking like he might get stripped, or probably will get stripped by the IBF if he fights Ellis Zorro on the 23rd of December. Now, the rules state that, you know, he wasn't granted a stay busy fight before the Breeders fight, right? There's another Breeders fight. I don't know how Breeders got himself back in the picture, but nonetheless, Breeders is injured. Eddie Hearn's disappointed. I had to think about this and think, if you give boxing promoters the edge to dictate how the IBF run their business, then that could be a nightmare in itself. But let's talk about it in this video.
It's really disappointing. You know, we've agreed a deal to fight Breedis in, I think, February or March, who's the mandatory. And we wrote to the IBF and said, look, we'd like to do a fight in between. And they said, no, you can't. And that is the rules, but like, we just got to have a little bit of common sense.
He's not going to be ready till then anyway, is he, Breedis?
I know, but that's called common sense.
Boxing.
Okay, welcome back once again. Shout out to all the subscribers, much love to you, and gratitude to anybody new locked in, battling with the train right now. Just bear with me. But as I said in the beginning, I'll leave the link to the actual full story in the description box, because I'm sure there's some parts that I'm missing. But essentially, Jai Opetaia, who was granted the Thompson fight, by the way, that's what the article said. The IBF granted him that fight. Okay, so that was perfectly fine. And now there's a fight with Breedis again. I don't know. I didn't follow it hard enough to know how he got himself back in the mix so quickly. But nonetheless, the IBF did not want Jai Opetaia to take a stay busy fight, which would be the one on the December 23rd against Ellis Zorro, which we will talk about at the end of this video, the details of that fight. But the question is, if you were Jai Opetaia, would you take that fight? Would you risk being stripped, or knowing that you're going to get stripped, fight Zorro, get the exposure, get your name out there, get a massive payday? Apparently, like Hearn was saying, it's a big payday, and you can only imagine it is. I know that the Saudis have got bottomless pockets apparently, but it's the exposure as well, and it's just staying busy. And like, at the end of the day, I'm not saying belts aren't important. Obviously, he's won the title. That will never change. He is also the Ring Magazine champion. Now, that's lost its prestige a little bit. That was started in like the 1920s. I think 1922 they opened it up and started recognizing that as, like, you know, kind of like the lineal champion, sort of, you know, in that division. It went on through to like the 90s. They stopped it for a little bit and reintroduced it in the early 2000s as like the person in the division to be the man, basically. And I don't know why it's lost its prestige, but it is supposed to be, you're the best fighter in the division. So he does have that. He's also Jai Opetaia. I made a film study about him. If you're curious about his style and stuff like that, I'll leave the link up here. And shout out to anybody that watched that, and shout out to all the new subscribers along as well. Peace to you. But basically, you know, he's going to probably win more belts, right? His desire to win all these belts is so high, and that's why I was so kind of enamored when I'm listening to this guy's interviews. I'm just like, I love hearing that. I love hearing, because if every fighter was like that, the sport would be so much better. So much better. I said that about Brian Mendoza. There's a whole ton of fighters out there too that were just willing to fight anybody and have this. They want to get all the belts and they want to go up and attack the next division up. And I was just like, wow. You know, some fighters talk about that and they don't actually do it. But it seems like Jai Opetaia is doing it. And so if I were him, the question is, well, let's talk about the facts about the situation, right? The rules, and Hearn did state this, is the rules, that is their rule. In terms of, you know, what they say, like I said, I'll leave the link, but they stated for him to take a stay active fight. So they've already put that. They must have been like, you know, we're going to do it anyway and see what we can get away with. This is why you have rules, and this is what I'm saying. Like, as much as it's sad, not sad, but like unfortunate to hear that a champion's going to get stripped for doing nothing really, you know, at the end of the day, they do have to have some sort of, I know we're talking about sanctioning bodies here, so it's a little ironic, but if you give a boxing promoter, you know, the leverage on what common sense is from their point of view, and it would be common sense, don't get me wrong, it'd be common sense for them to go, do you know what, fair enough. Breedis is not ready. We can't even make that fight. Just do that fight, no problem. But then it does open the door down the line for, as I said, other promoters. They might say, you know, they'll try and use that as leverage for them, and you just get this whole grey area, possibly. So you do have to have some sort of rule just to say, no, we're not doing that. But again, if I'm Jai Opetaia, I would take that Zorro fight. Get out there, get a good win under your belt. No, when I say good win, no disrespect to Zorro, that's not obviously a good win. I mean, he's a relatively unknown. He hasn't lost yet. I think he's 17-0. His best or good win was, I think, Jose Burton. He stopped him. He looks like a decent domestic fighter. I haven't watched loads of him, but that should be a routine win for Jai Opetaia for sure. He should be able to stop him in the 6th round. I'll talk more about that soon. But you go there, you put a job on, you get a great performance in, you get your exposure on the big Saudi card. That's the biggest fight. That's the biggest card we've seen in a very long time. And as a I don't know what word I'm looking for, like an ambitious fighter, right? That's part of it. You want to be on these big cards, you want to be involved, and like at the end of the day, a belt, he's going to win more belts if he has to go. And I'm assuming the Breidis fight would be for a vacant belt if they stripped him for the same belt that he won. He'll probably do that. He's not accustomed, or not accustomed to going the hard way or the long way. He's been injured, he's been inactive, not necessarily his fault. I don't know, actually not injury, but I know he had some issues where he had to get on the sideline from competitors pulling out, stuff like that. I don't think it was injury, but he was airing out his frustration. But the whole time he was doing that, he was still in camp, still grinding, still working hard, still getting better. So that says a lot about this young man. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, he's going to be in there. He wants to clean up the cruiserweight division, which I think he will. You know, the Chris Billum-Smith fight is there. I didn't see that fight recently against Masternak, but Jai Opetaia should be he should have no problem winning that fight. I forget who the other is. It Badu Jack, I think, is the other champ. I've got no problems making him the heavy favorite in that fight either. And then he wants to move up to heavyweight. I say take this fight. What do you think? You think he should take this fight? Do you think he should hold on to the belt and swerve the 23rd? If so, why? I'd love to know your reasons why. I'm open for it. And do you think the rules are a little bit harsh? Because, like I said, if you are just going to give the common sense open for debate or give the floor to boxing promoters, that could, you know, be messy. Because let's just say they're not going to want to give. They're going to want to take as much as they can. Rightfully so. They're promoters. They're trying to do the best they can to make the most money, to get their fighters exposure, whatever they need to do. They're doing it for business. So I get both sides, but I think if you're Jai Opetaia, you're like, you know what, to hell with the belt. Let me go and smash this guy and then get on another fight, which I'm assuming would be the Breidis fight. Win the belt back, and then he's just even in a better situation, you know, mentally, physically, spiritually, just like, yeah, because he's ascending so fast right now. So that's what I think. Let's talk about this Zorro fight, right? I've watched the Burton fight a little bit this morning, just kind of had a little study of Zorro. Nothing really stands out, to be honest with you, like in terms of, like, you know, he's not particularly fast. He doesn't appear to have that much pop, or he did stop Jose Burton with a beautiful shot. In fact, one of the shots leading up to that was somewhat of a beautiful setup, like double feint jab, right hand over the top, and he came up, and it was a great shot to start the trouble. And, you know, coming in, and Opetaia has that bounce. Zorro wasn't bouncing like that, but he did come straight in, double jab, right hand, and Opetaia can do that with the left hand, but in a different fashion with the bounce. But one thing that Zorro does well, which might help him out, is he can counterpunch a little bit. Now, counterpunching is a very important weapon to have that not every boxer has. And it blows my mind when fighters can't counterpunch. You know, it would be one of the first things you should be learning to do after you've discovered, you know, all the beginner stages and you're getting better. Just learn how to fight going backwards and learn how to counterpunch. Those two are kind of synonymous, but it can get you out of so much trouble, and it can diffuse the fight, and it can take a little bit of pressure off and a bit of steam off, and make your opponent hesitant of coming in. If you're catching them with some check hooks or some sneaky short right hand counter punches, which if Opetaia is coming in like that, you can just catch him with that right hand. Again, that's in the film study. I spoke about one of the downsides of that pendulum step, which is that bounce, is if you're bouncing and you get caught on the middle of the bounce, your feet really can't do much, and if you haven't started punching, you've got a few milliseconds to catch and time Opetaia, which I would look at. I would strongly suggest Zorro would look at that. Maybe someone should send him my film study. Just kidding. But look, it's a fight that routinely, like, Opetaia should be winning this. He loves to engage. He's got a multifaceted offense. He's can box off the back foot, counter punching with a check hook. He can throw. He's got power in both hands, and he's got an unbelievable chin, and he's got an unbelievable heart. So he should be winning this fight pretty easily, in my opinion. But Zorro could make it a bit more difficult if this fight does go ahead. If he does try to slow the fight down, maybe land some significant counter punches, and he's got to go in there with the confidence too. He has this body language where he's like seems like he's a little bit don't know what word I'm looking for. Just it doesn't exude major confidence. I'm not saying he doesn't have it, because he's a professional fighter with 17-0, and you know but he doesn't exude that confidence, even talking or just during the fight. I think he lacks a little bit of self-belief on the outside. But again, I haven't studied him loads, but I would say if you go in there confidently and don't be gun shy, counter punch when you need to, and he's got pretty good head movement as well, Zorro, when he needs to. I would recommend using that, because Opetaia does like to come down the line with that left hand, set it up, and the one thing to counter off straight punches is head movement. So, but let me know your thoughts on this fight too. Just assume it's going ahead. I'd love to know what you think. Do you know more about Zorro than I do? Do you give him a better chance, or do you think he's going to get wiped out by Opetaia? I think probably mid rounds. I think between 5 and 7. I would be surprised if Opetaia didn't get him out of there that early, or maybe in the middle rounds. 7 or 8, something like that. Because he's just too much. He loves to get stuck in, and he's just constantly on you, and he can fight. He's a very, very well-rounded fighter. He really is. And someone in the chat that watched that film study was saying that he's also able to sit out a chess game, which I haven't watched loads of him. Obviously I saw the Breeders fight, I saw the Thompson fight, and I've started to study him a bit more. But this guy was saying, shout out to you, that he can sit out and wait out a chess game. And my response to that was, I'm not surprised, because when you've been boxing for so long as a kid, you're developing your IQ without even thinking about doing it, and that the brain IQ just gets developed. The more you fight, the longer you do it. That is just, obviously you're going to get better, but the IQ can just, it's one of the weirder things to understand about boxing, because it can, you can, if you really work on your IQ over time, you can get a lot smarter. You really can. You think about the sport differently. You think about your approach and all of this stuff, and the approach, managing his patience, being patient with his style, being patient, and that's where the IQ comes in. Not necessarily going all out. Not that he goes all out, but he puts pressure on, he throws punches, and he wants to hurt you. Do you know what I mean? He's a handful, but it seems like he's really smart as well. This guy's gonna be incredibly tough to beat, and I'm really excited for that card, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope he makes his decision soon, and I hope he goes through with it and says, to hell with the belt, I'll win it back. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. I'm out of it. It's such a beautiful day here in New York City. I'm going to go for a run, and I hope you have a lovely week. I will see you in a couple of days. I'm trying to get that b-ball project. I know I've been banging on about that, but I'm trying to get that done. It's so difficult, man. It really is. It's called The Art of Perfection. It's about Dmitry Bivol and the Soviet style, and how he developed it, and the regime of drilling, on the bag, and his stoicness as well. He's a very stoic fighter, and I don't think he gets put in that bracket, because you have like the Beterbievs of the world, and I suppose Golovkin, and a lot of Eastern European fighters. Perhaps people do put Bivol in that category, but he's a bit low key with it. But he's mastered that pendulum step, you know, speaking of, and that in and out style, but his lead hand is just a beautiful thing in action. It's so amazing, and I am tirelessly trying to find a way to bring this piece of art to life. It's been very challenging. I'm sure you don't want to hear me ramble on anymore. I'm out of here. Have a good one.
Boxing.
On the edge.